I was house-sitting for my grandmother one weekend while she traveled to Florida with some of her church companions. I was resting in the guest bedroom adjacent to hers. The guest bedroom has always featured two twin beds, which my brother and I used during our overnight stays at her home. I chose the bed by the window, but prior to settling in, I verified that all the doors were securely locked. Once in bed, it was still early and sleep eluded me for some time. There wasn't much entertainment at my grandmother's residence, so I spent about an hour on my phone, viewing videos, exchanging messages, and the like. It was then that I began to discern a voice outside. It resembled a woman's, uttering hello. I exited the bedroom and cautiously approached the front door, proceeding slowly to better attune my ears. Indeed, it was a woman's voice repeating hello at intervals of roughly 10 seconds. As I drew nearer to the front door, I determined that was the source. My grandmother's door lacks a peephole, but the windows in her dining room offered a direct view of the front porch, so I positioned myself at that window to survey the area. I attempted to peer discreetly between the plastic blinds without drawing attention, but evidently I failed, for when I looked, there was a woman on my grandmother's stoop, staring directly at me, as though anticipating my gaze through those blinds. Once more she intoned hello, accompanied by an unnerving smile. This woman appeared mature, yet do not envision her as a frail, benign elderly figure. She seemed in her late 50s or early 60s, and something about her countenance profoundly disturbed me. I withdrew from the window and considered whether she might be one of my grandmother's acquaintances. However, it was midnight. Why would anyone arrive at such an hour? Moreover, why refrain from knocking or ringing the doorbell? Why merely linger there, reiterating hello? I felt genuinely disconcerted. I returned to the guest bedroom and closed the door unlike before and could no longer hear her. Perhaps she had departed. I began messaging everyone about it, my sisters, my friends, describing the peculiarity, but as time elapsed in silence, I started to regain composure. My sisters urged me to contact our grandmother, but she was undoubtedly asleep, and she seldom checks her phone regardless. Abruptly, the quiet shattered. A forceful pounding at the window, not a gentle knock but aggressive banging. A sharp surge of fear gripped my chest as my instincts shifted to survival mode. Moments after the pounding ceased, I heard that same voice say hello. Fueled by adrenaline, I mustered the resolve to seize the blinds and lift them. There I confronted this alarming older woman, separated only by a fragile pane of glass. I shouted at her grinning, repulsive visage, "I'm calling the authorities." I lowered the blinds and dashed to the living room, surveying the house before ascending to barricade myself in the upstairs guest bedroom. I hesitated to actually summon the police. I cannot explain why. I preferred to endure it. I burrowed into the bed in the upstairs guest bedroom and concealed myself beneath the covers. Several hours later, still vigilant, I finally ventured downstairs to inspect each window. The unsettling woman appeared absent. The following morning, I phoned my grandmother and recounted the incident. She responded with vehement alarm, her voice fraught with distress, revealing that days prior, she had been observed in the grocery store by a woman approximately a decade her junior, who persistently smiled at her without cause. I urged her to compose herself. I was uncertain about linking the events, but after concluding our call, I pondered it further. My grandmother is 75 and has exhibited some cognitive decline, so I approach her accounts with measured skepticism, yet her fervent reaction regarding the store encounter sent a chill through me. I continue to speculate if it was the same individual. My name is Nicholas. I am presently a freshman at Syracuse University, which is not situated in the most secure locale. I had recently endured a breakup with my first girlfriend, prompting me to re-enter the realm of online dating. Utilizing Hinge, I encountered a blonde woman named Stephanie, with whom I formed a genuine rapport. She also attended Syracuse. We shared interests in reading, cinema, and even possessed similar humor. I proposed a movie outing, and she enthusiastically agreed, instructing me to meet her at a designated spot near campus for pickup. Thus, around 9 o'clock, I positioned myself on the corner of an ordinary residential block, awaiting Stephanie. She requested I share my location, which I did. Shortly thereafter, a vehicle turned onto the street and approached, halting before me as the driver lowered the window. It was not Stephanie, however, but an unfamiliar older man who inquired what I was doing alone there, an extraordinarily odd question. I replied that I awaited someone. He then asked if it was Stephanie, and upon my affirmation, he identified himself as her father, urging me to enter for transport to her. I scrutinized him. He seemed somewhat advanced in age to be her parent, frankly. I am no fool in dubious circumstances, so I asserted firmly, "Why didn't she inform me you'd be collecting me?" He professed distrust of an unknown man meeting his daughter and wished to vet me first. I examined the man again without response, then simply turned and walked away in the direction opposite his vehicle. He began calling out, "Hey, hey," evidently startled by my departure, but I have encountered too many abduction narratives to ignore the risks. I heard his car in motion and glanced back to confirm he wasn't revering to pursue me. Relief washed over me as he proceeded straight and veered left, vanishing. I continued along the block toward campus. Upon reaching the corner, I was about to turn when I spotted what I believed to be the same vehicle parked curbside with lights extinguished. I fleetingly attempted to peer through the window as I passed, but the tint obscured visibility. I endeavored to conceal my suspicion and pressed on. I received a message from the purported Stephanie. "Why didn't you enter the car with my dad?" I disregarded it and persisted. I repeatedly checked behind me for movement. At an intersection, I turned right and then sprinted toward campus. Astonishingly, no pursuit ensued. I arrived on campus, breathless, en route to my dormitory. I sensed footsteps trailing me, though. I dismissed it as paranoia until I heard glass shards displaced by a shoe. I knew then I was being followed. I crouched behind a van to listen. The steps were several vehicles away. Recalling I hadn't ceased sharing my location with Stephanie, or rather, that man, I spotted him. The older gentleman advancing from between two cars opposite me. He shouted something indistinct, resembling "come back. Take you to her." He appeared in his 60s. He could never overtake me in a sprint. I evaded him effortlessly and reached my dorm. My roommate was absent, leaving me without immediate confidant, but as I reclined on my bed, another message arrived from him, profoundly disturbing. "You're a little piece of you're lucky you got away. I would have strangled your ugly ass." I retained the screenshot. I responded, "Thanks for the threat, it's going straight to the police," and blocked the number. I preserve the exchange as evidence and intend to report it to authorities soon, hopeful for resolution. At 18, I held a part-time janitorial position at my high school during summer, working variable shifts from 9 a.m. to midnight based on financial needs. Frequently, I was tasked with securing the building after senior staff departed. This predated the installation of cameras throughout the hallways. One evening, my supervisor, Tom, departed prematurely, leaving me to complete the shift solo and lock up. He advised texting him if needed, as customary, then exited. I relished solitude, often completing minimal work before idling on my phone or departing early while claiming full pay. I certainly tested boundaries there. Among Tom's directives was relocating surplus chairs from the gymnasium assembly to basement storage. I planned to handle that and depart. I hoisted a stack of 6 chairs and descended to the basement. The storage lighting was feeble, rendering the space unappealing. The entire basement evoked a warehouse underbelly. In any case, numerous art mannequins stood shrouded in paint cloths, those substantial coverings akin to blankets, evidently housing the school's art materials. I deposited the chairs amid their counterparts and ascended for more. Upon returning with another load, I observed one mannequin now uncovered. Its cloth had been displaced. I was certain it had been veiled moments before, as it was prominently positioned. I messaged Tom. "I believe someone's in the basement." He queried, "What do you mean?" I elaborated. "One of the art cloths was moved." After a pause, he replied that no one else should be present. Then I noticed a cloth relegated to the dim corner, beyond the central illumination, enveloping something assuredly. I approached stealthily. Nearing it, I perceived subtle motion beneath. Unquestionably, someone concealed there. I retreated upstairs, secured the basement door, and texted Tom. "Someone is hiding under a cloth in the basement." He suggested calling authorities, but I implored his return given his recent departure. He resisted, exhorting me to confront the intruder assertively. Thus, I descended once more. However, the cloth lay flat on the floor, its occupant vanished. Yet the most terrifying element ensued. As I lingered in the storage room, resonant metallic thuds emanated from overhead. Glancing up, I witnessed depressions forming gradually in the expansive air ducts above. Someone traversed them. The movement halted directly overhead, followed by pounding, as if attempting to breach the duct floor. I comprehended the peril but was resolute to flee. I ascended, secured the school, and returned home. The next day, I conveyed a partial account to Tom, that I thought I glimpsed someone in the corner, who vanished upon re-examination, omitting further details. It was my final week, rendering it inconsequential.